All right, so this is our first photography assignment. In the class, I can always look at assignment pages under modules and then under assignment sheets. And this is our very first 3-point assignment, contrast studies. If I click it will download to a PDF, which I can print out. They're all just one page. And what it says is that we are going to combine a series of 3 square format photographs on a single white 10 by 8 inch format. And each exposure will showcase reduced saturation, so black, white, sepia, or monochromatic scale, and extremes and naturalistic contrast. And what it means by naturalistic contrast is it should have a bright white, a dark dark, and very naturalistic grays in between, things that feel believable and not artificially manipulated. We are getting this by experimenting with light, direct light, diffused light, filtered light, reflected light, natural, artificial, all those kind of things. We just went and we got some of our different exposures. So some things to know about assignments moving forward. They're always graded on this rubric. The only way you can get a 0 is not turning in anything with your name by the time the critique is due. But if you turn in anything, even if it doesn't even resemble the assignment, and you have your name, you can still get 1 point because it shows me you acknowledge the deadline. Now 1 point out of 3 is not very good. But if you turn something in by the deadline, you can always resubmit for a better grade. So with significant improvements, you'll get a new grade. 2 points, that means you meet all the requirements, but it doesn't really show an image that's engaging the viewer yet. It looks very much like an exercise, not like a portfolio piece. And this is a hard thing to work on, but it's basically if it meets the requirements, but there's easy mistakes that can be fixed, or things that it can definitely do better, I'll comment on that, and you can improve it to get up to 3 points. 3 points is something that has very few things that need improvement, and is really something that shows your unique point of view and engages the viewer as an art photograph, not just an exercise for a class. Okay, in order to get credit, you have to post to the PhotoBucket page, to the right folder with your name on it. And for this project, even though we only need 3 exposures to do this project, you want to get more shots than you need and edit down to the 3 that best highlight strong contrast and value range. I'll be showing you that now. And we'll be going over all the kind of processing that gives us that. You can see examples of each assignment in the PhotoBucket. So you just go to library once you're logged into PhotoBucket, and all that information is under links. And under photo assignments now, assignment 1 are the contrast assignments. This is where we're going to upload our assignments, but we can look at past student examples to get a sense of what our projects might look like. Now, even though we're processing by taking out the color, that doesn't mean that there's no color in monochrome. So this has more kind of bluish tones. This is slightly warmer. This is quite a bit warmer, almost sepia toned. All of that's allowed, as long as it's showcasing contrast. All right, so I get started by putting in my memory card. We just took shots from inside the building, and you might have shots that you took on your own. That will probably be more interesting. The way I preview the shots, and I only copy the ones that I'm interested in using, I select the whole bunch of them off my memory card, this whole series of photos, even the failed photos, and I double click to open them all up in preview. Then I slide preview over to the side, or I shrink it a little bit so it all fits, but I want preview to also have some desktop showing. Okay, so we all took this as kind of our test exposure, and you can see that I have really strong darks here, nice bright whites that still don't lose the information. And so that's the kind of contrast range I'm looking for. But sadly, this is a very boring shot. But it just reminds me what I'm looking for. Okay, so this one has some potential. There's some good areas of contrast here. It's a little blasted out where you lose visual information in some places. But I think that might be one I save to the desktop. Just like in Photoshop, you can zoom in and out in preview by holding down Command plus to zoom in to see what the focus is like. So I'm liking that. And Command minus to zoom out. You can also use your arrow keys to go through.
What if we have a few pictures that we took?
All right, this exposure, it has some nice value contrast. I'm not losing any information. And what I'm doing is, even though I took a lot of photos, I'm trying to find at least 5 that I'm interested in that I think have some potential. So this, even though it has a very narrow focus range, I think this might be good.
How'd you get them into preview mode?
You just double click them and they'll automatically open in preview.
Oh, got it.
And we just drag it to the thing.
Yeah, for the ones you want to work on and copy to the desktop, you just click and drag them off to the desktop. Now, it can be hard to kind of recognize what would make good contrast when something's in bright color. Like, I like this shot a lot. It's got these beautiful colors, but when I squint, I can kind of tone those colors down and see where the contrast is. You're also just looking and seeing kind of which ones have the best focus. Focus in the area you want. I focused on the middle ground here. It's really artsy, but I don't know if it has the best contrast. Some of the shots I liked most, I just shot the interior of garbage cans. With a diffused flash that was kind of angled off at a different direction. And they look like caves and kind of did manual focus. So I might be able to do something with those, with that level. Okay, so now I have 5 selections. I got some gross shots of the bathroom as well. I thought you guys would like that one.
Yeah.
Now this actually has some really nice subtle value ranges, but it's almost too subtle to show off contrast, right? It doesn't go from bright white to deep black all on the same surface. So I've chosen 5 photos now. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close my memory card and eject it, and then immediately take it out of the camera once it disappears, or out of the computer, and put it back in my camera so I don't leave it here. All right, now I have my 5 exposures, but I don't need 5, I only need 3. So now I'm going to look at them with a little bit more scrutiny. And I already know that this one is too similar to this one, so it's going to be one or the other. And we're going to crop down to a square. And honestly, I think this one, even though it's a nice, strong texture, if I squint, it's almost all highlight and shadow. There's not a lot of middle range there. The light is just too strong on it, not diffused enough. So I think I'm going to go with this one, which was further away from the light instead, because I like the contrast we get here in this range. I like all the scuff marks. Okay. I think this one's a keeper. I squint, I have all these reflective beads, I have a lot of nice contrast, but then I also have all the texture and different local color from these different fabrics. And then I think I can make something of this. This one, it's an interesting shot, but I think it's a little, well, yeah, this could be brought up in processing pretty well. I'm torn between these two. What do you guys think? The garbage bag or this one?
I like that one.
That one's more centered, yeah.
All right, we'll do this one. Well, we're going to be cropping into it. So, okay, so now I'm going to keep all 5, but I'm going to mark the ones I want to focus on. So it's this one, and this one. And I'm going to right click and make those all yellow. So these are my preferred exposures. I'm not going to rename them, I'm just going to mark them yellow. Then I can close preview, and then I can start processing. So, I'm going to open those up in Photoshop.
Wait, can you give us some time?
Now, just to show you really quickly what we're going to do is we're going to take our exposures, and we're going to open it up in Photoshop. And I'm just going to start with one of them right now. And very fast, I'll show you what we do to take out the color and to crop it. So the first thing we do is we go and we make a duplicate of the background layer by hitting Command J. We always want to preserve our original exposure. Then I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels, and I'm going to balance out the histogram. Notice how lopsided. This is actually a pretty poor exposure in terms of histogram, but there's a lot of value in there that can be used. So what that means is I'm going to take the highlights and push them up so that the brightest white in the photo is the brightest white you can have, which is that little highlight right there on the nozzle. I don't have to maximize or optimize my shadows, because if I start to do that, I'll lose information on this histogram, since most of it's in the darker half. And then I can play with my midtones. And I'm just going to brighten my midtones a little bit, maybe to about there. Okay. Next, I'm going to make a duplicate of that. I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, and I'm going to play with the hue saturation. Now, the way we take out all the color is to simply take the saturation all the way down to 0, or negative 100. So from 0, which is what your exposure brings in, to negative 100. If we take it to positive 100, it intensifies every color. But we're going to take it all the way to negative 100. And that's basically what your camera does when you shoot in black and white. Then I'm going to go back to levels, so adjustment levels. And now without the color interfering with it, I can adjust my histogram a little bit more. And try to define it. Okay? Now I make a duplicate of that completely desaturated photo. And now I'm going to process it in monochrome. So I go back to hue saturation, and this time I click on what's called colorize. And here is where I get to pick whether it's a warm monochrome or a cool monochrome. So you can do a saturation anywhere from 0 to 10. And 10 would be the most saturated I want you to allow your pictures to get. And then you pick the type of monochrome using this hue scale. So if I want it to be more like a sienna type, kind of bluish, I might pick a 158 hue. If I want it more sepia and warm, I might do like a 38. If I want it just less saturated overall, don't go to 0, because there's no such thing as true gray photography. But I can make it very subtle, like at 5. And I like that. So why not do 45? Or maybe even for this demo, we'll do 32 and 5. Now I want to remember that. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll do Command-Shift-4, and I'll make a screen grab of the settings, because I'm going to play those against the other photos as well. Or you can make a little notation, hue 32, saturation 5. So that's the processing for this kind of color. Okay, then I'm going to save it and move on to the next one.